Okay, this lecture we're going to do perpetual motion, things that seem to go on forever. So this is, I'm Robert Nemroff, this is Michigan Tech, and this class is Extraordinary Concepts in Physics, and there's lots of these lectures, about 50, sometimes called Physics X. You can find them on iTunes or on the web, possibly here. So let's get right to it. Perpetual motion, I've been interested in this stuff for a long time because there's claims of it. Some people appear on late night talk shows hawking perpetual motion machines. Does it exist? Well, technically, perpetual motion is something that is always in motion. Practically, though, when someone says they have a perpetual motion machine, they're hawking a machine that generates energy from nothing. So Newton's laws indicate that anything that starts in motion remains in motion. So in a sense, perpetual motion is just expected. It's Aristotelian motion that stops. So what's the big deal about perpetual motion? Things just keep going. Well, in real world, though, there's frictional forces and things will stop. So, however, machines that generate energy from nothing have never been found and are now considered a waste of time. So if someone is proposing a perpetual motion, meaning an energy generation machine, you should be quite skeptical. Well, there's been analyzed in some detail. There's at least three kinds. The first kind generates energy from nothing. It's that kind of perpetual motion machine. So this violates the local conservation of energy, and since energy can be used to generate heat or work, it also violates the first law of thermodynamics, which states, the first law, the change in the internal energy of a system is equal to the amount of energy added by heating the system minus the amount lost as a result of the work done by the system on its surroundings. What's interesting is sometimes these perpetual motion machines can be used to look at the laws of thermodynamics and see which one is violated. And trying to study perpetual motion machines can actually help one better understand conservation of energy and thermodynamic laws. So the second law of perpetual motion, second kind of perpetual motion, is violates the second law of thermodynamics. This is uses heat as a power source directly and continuously without the flow of heat to a sink. So the second law of thermodynamics says that heat macroscopically cannot flow spontaneously from a material at lower energy to a material at higher energy. So sometimes you get machines that do this. I remember once when I was an undergraduate, I was thinking of a bouncing ball that I was going to patent, that the ball would bounce and the ball would then transfer some of its heat to the ground, and so the ball would become colder but it would bounce higher. So the bouncing ball would just continually bounce higher and higher and get colder and colder. However, I now understand that this would be a perpetual motion machine of the second kind. It would violate the second law of thermodynamics, so you can't really do it. Third kind. This is the kind that relies on eliminating friction. So technically this is not an energy generation machine as an energy storage device. It is not possible to move with zero friction. There is superconducting things that seem to minimize friction to very low levels, but so far no one's ever been able to reduce friction to actually zero. So there's always going to be some friction in a real world system. There's lots of useful thought of experiments that go on with perpetual motion, and some of them are a lot of fun, so I'm going to try to get to a bunch of them now. They include Maxwell's Demon, which was done in another lecture, and the Brownian ratchet wheel, which is coming up right now. So in the Brownian ratchet wheel, you have some gas in this box, and you have another gas in this box, and this gas can push this ratchet around, which is connected to this one, so this one will go around. But here's a paw, and the paw will only allow the wheel to turn in one direction. So therefore, all you have to do is fill these guys with hot gas and then connect this to your car and you can go. So for free. What's the problem with this? Well, the ratchet wheel and cog, so what's the problem? A ratchet wheel with cogs and a paw that allows it to rotate in only one direction. Random Brownian motion of the air molecules strike the wheel, so it explains it again. Sometimes causing enough motion so that it clicks forward one cog, the paw prevents it from even clicking back. Is a slow rotation of the wheel perpetual motion? So the answers are, so yes, you've done it, no, and it depends on how many dimensions the paw can move in. So you can freeze this and think about it. But this has got a lot of slides today, so we'll go quickly. No, it's not perpetual motion. The wheel will only rotate as expected when the ratchet and paw are significantly colder than the surrounding air, or the heat bath. Then the device works by tapping into the heat flow from the heat bath to the wheel. So if the wheel is cold and the gas is hot, you can do this so long as you can transfer energy from the gas to the cold wheel. Once they equilibrate in energy and become the same temperature, then it no longer works, and the paw will actually go as much time backwards as forwards. It's a little bit counterintuitive. I've never done the experiment myself, but it makes some sort of sense. Oh, this is one I discovered when I think I was an undergraduate. It's been one of my favorites ever since. It's the balls are pulled up a ramp by that powerful permanent magnet, but then drop through a hole. So here's a ball right here at E, but here's a powerful magnet here. So this is a metallic ball, and so the ball says, oh great, I'm going to go up the ramp, and oh no, when it gets to B, it falls through a hole right there, and it rolls back down here, and then it ends up back here, and then it feels the magnet again and just keeps going. Is this a perpetual motion machine? Why doesn't this work? Well, any magnet powerful enough, number one, to pull the balls up the ramp would be powerful enough to keep them from dropping through the hole. Is that it? Is that the answer? Or the rolling ball would at first be attracted to the magnet, but after it rolled, its polarity would reverse, and hence it would be repelled from the magnet. Is that the answer? Is it that the system actually does work, but there's just no way to extract power from it? Or will the electric companies kill anyone who gets too close to making this work to protect the profit of their investors? Because they're a business like anyone else. They can't let this get out. They've got a lot of money invested in their ways they're generating power. Why it doesn't work. Any magnet powerful enough to pull the balls up the ramp would be powerful enough to keep them from dropping through the hole. So if we go back and look at the second one, the ball itself is not a magnet. The ball could just be metal. So it's not, if it was a two-part magnet, then it would have that same problem. But you can get around that one, but you can't get around this one. Oops. Okay, so here's another one. Hollow balls, consider them ping pong balls, float up through water only to be pulled back down as they descend through air. So over on this side, your ping pong balls, the mass pulls them down because they have mass. Oh, but on this side, the ping pong balls are airtight, so they have air in them and they want to rise through the water. So they're pulled down here, they rise here, they go in here, they go out there. You got a perpetual motion machine. It falls on one side, it rises on the other, it just keeps going. What we need is to invest in ping pong balls and power the world, right? Well, we don't. Why are we not buying lots of ping pong balls and generating power? Well, there's one of four possible reasons. One, there is no way to push the balls into the bottom without losing water. Two, pushing the balls into the bottom will take at least as much energy as gained from the balls floating up and the falling down. Three, this will work only so long as the water is cooler than the ping pong balls. And four, a team at Brookhaven National Labs is now nearing break-even energy for a device that works on this principle. Which is it? Drum roll, please. Pushing the balls in at the bottom will take at least as much energy as gained from the balls floating up and the falling down. So this is a clever sounding machine, and there's a lot of perpetual motion machines that have something that looks on the face of it really clever, but if you analyze it, there's some trick that doesn't work, and you don't get perpetual motion. If you were to build this, and this is not hard to build, it won't go. One of the key things about perpetual forces, perpetual motions, which the magnetic one that we saw a couple of slides ago tinges on, is that it involves conservative forces. So it's like some perpetual motion machines decide they're going to tap the gravitational energy of the Earth or tap the gravitational energy of the Sun. And that doesn't work because those forces are conservative forces. And a conservative force creates work on a particle that is independent of the path taken. Therefore, paths that return to the starting point can gain no work. They can't generate power. Therefore, a conservative force field cannot be used to generate a perpetual motion machine that generates energy. An example of these is common Newtonian gravity that we're used to and the Coulomb electric force. The U.S. Patent Office no longer accepts patent applications on things that it is decided are perpetual motion machines. They get a bunch of these, and it's tapping the intellectual and financial power of many patent offices which in the world that have followed suit. So if you think you've created a perpetual motion machine, you would think, well, I need to protect myself. I need to get a patent. But you'll be surprised that they will send it back to you. In fact, I think when you fill out the patent, you've got to tell them that this is not, you're not claiming to generate power from nothing. Some people, they create machines that are so complex. The idea is if you can make it complex enough, you have enough ratchets and paws and wheels turning that people won't be able to follow it. And theoretically, you can make something so sophisticated that nobody could follow it. So should every physicist in the world just drop everything and try to analyze these extremely sophisticated machines to confirm that they don't generate power? And the answer is no. Most professional physicists don't want to analyze perpetual motion machines. So we're not even going to analyze it for you. So people sometimes get email, professional physicists get email from people saying, look, I created this and you don't even want to look at it. Because we've never found one that works. So why should this one work? And I'm not going to spend hours, days, weeks, and even years trying to figure out what the flaw is in this machine. It's best just to assume that it doesn't work. So this brings us to, okay, so this reminds me, I forgot about hoaxes. So some people think they've created perpetual motion, and they're really surprised to find out that they haven't. So they've spent time in their basement, they've convinced their relatives that this is the good stuff. And their relatives are just so proud of them. And so in their little bubble, they're a hero. And when they venture outside their bubble, they're not a hero, and that's kind of sad. Because these people could have hooked up with the mainstream and maybe have made contributions to physics and science that would have helped the world. However, some people know that they're fooling. And their idea is to just get away with it for as long as possible. So there's some really cool perpetual motion machines that have been suggested. This was more of a pastime in the early parts of the 1900s. For some reason, a bunch of people would travel between cities with their perpetual motion machines and amazing devices and put on shows. Nowadays, you can sometimes get on a talk show with this, but if they've done their homework, then you won't be able to do that. One of my favorite ones was this machine that was in this glass box, and this box had posts. And actually, I've lost the link to this. There's a similar one here described in the Museum of Hoaxes. But in this glass box, this thing would go and go and go. And the inventor put it in a museum, and it would come back, and it would just keep going for days and days and days, and it just wouldn't stop. And it had big wheels in there, and people were amazed. So what eventually they found out was happening was the device would be cleaned every so often, maybe every night. And these posts would look like this. They were balls. And they noticed that one of the cleaning people would only clean the post by cleaning it in one direction. They were essentially winding a rubber band that was inside that post that was then connected to the rest of the device. So, of course, the person would say, oh, you have to let me clean the machine, right? It's going to get dirty. People want to look at it. You've got to be careful. In the one that's described here, they actually found that that there was a guy in another room. This was connected somehow through something on the floor, and there was a guy in another room, apparently eating bread when he was discovered, who would just turn a lever and wind this machine up. It's a separate machine. So my advice, not that you want my advice, if you're a perpetual motion inventor, if you have created a true perpetual motion machine from which you create free energy, please do not hold press conferences and tell everyone. Don't go on talk shows. What you should do is start generating power and selling it, because you're going to be rich. You can sell it to the electric company. U.S. electric companies have to buy it from you. Then don't tell anybody, because then you'll be losing your commercial advantage by telling them how it works. Telling them how it works is the last thing you want to do. No, generate the power. Generate the power and make the money. Don't go and hold press conferences and say you've done it. And with that, I will leave that to perpetual motion machines and everything else till the next fun lecture. Bye.